guys, welcome to the project 1 machine learning building video. So in this tutorial we are going to be building an end-to-end project on machine learning. So this project we are actually working on is for an airline. So we are actually trying to build a model that will predict if the customers of this airline will actually like to travel with the airline again. So let's just get started. So let's just go and say new. So let's just call this machine learning 1. So let's rename it. So the first thing we have to do here is importing our libraries. So let's just say importing libraries. So let's just turn this to a markdown and run it. So the libraries, the 4 libraries we are going to be making use of is pandas. So we import pandas as PD. We import numpy as NP. For visualization, let's import Seaborn as SNS. Then let's import matplotlib. So from matplotlib, import pyplots as plt, I guess. Okay, so let's import missing no. Import missing no as msno. So we also have to import machine learning libraries, but we are going to import those when we are trying to build our model. So let's just go ahead and run this. Okay, Seaborn. So let's go ahead and run this. Okay, so we have successfully run this. So the next thing we have to do is importing datasets. So let's go ahead and mark this down and run it. So the dataset we'll be using is this, right? Cast away cruise lines, and this dataset is actually an Excel file, as you can see here. So we use the pd.read. So let's create a variable called df is equals to pd.read underscore Excel. Now, in a situation where this is not an Excel file, this is a CSV, here we just say CSV, but this is an Excel file, so we just say Excel. So the next thing we have to do is put arrow here. Then let's go ahead and copy the paths. So once you right click, then you copy as paths. Then you go here and paste the paths. So let's go ahead and run this. So we have successfully imported our data sets. So the next thing we have to do is data investigation, and cleaning. So let's mark this down and run it. So the first thing we have to do is let's look for checking the columns. Checking the columns of the data sets, and to do that we use df.head. So let's go ahead and run this. So as you can see, this is actually the data sets, the columns in the data set. As you can see, we have total cost, room cost, ship board expenses, casino expenses, excursion expenses, room type, customer satisfaction average of all questions, overall trip 1 to 5 satisfaction, would you travel again? So when you look at this particular data set now, you can see that we have just two categorical data and the rest are numerical, and the categorical data we have are the room type and the would you travel again. And please note that during our model building, this is our target, right? This is our target, and this would be our y, while the rest is going to be our x. So the next thing we have to do is let's look for missing values. It's no dot sum. So as you can see, this data we have no missing values. So the next thing we have to do is let's look for missing values. Let me see. So the next thing we have to do is let's look for duplicated values, for duplicates. So we use df.duplicated for that. Duplicated.sum. So as you can see, we have no duplicated values. So let's go ahead and look for and get statistical info. So let's do df.describe. Go ahead and run this. Now this is the statistical information of our data. As you can see, this is the count for each column, right? Then this is the mean for each column. Then this is the standard deviation, and this is the median. Okay, so the next thing we need to look for is let's get more information on the data. We use df.info. So let's go ahead and run this. So as you can see, this we have no missing values, right? There are no missing values here. And when we are actually looking at this, each columns, this is the data type, right? Now remember that I mentioned that we'll just have two categorical data. So this is it, objects, which is the room type, and we do travel again. So this is actually the two categorical data we have. So which means that this is actually correct, right? So sometimes when you're working on a project, you will have to change data type. Maybe when would you travel again that is supposed to be a categorical data is showing integer. Is appearing as a numerical data. You need to change your data type. But for here, there will be no need for that. So let's just go ahead. So the next thing we are going to do is I want to check for white spaces. White spaces. So to do that, I use df.columns. So let me run this. It's not callable. Okay. So this is the columns we have. Now for some reasons I don't really like the way these columns were named, so I would like us to actually go ahead and rename these columns. Now to rename those columns, we need to make use of rename. Okay, so the first thing we have to do is df equals to df.rename. So volumes, sorry, brackets. Then we have total cost. So let's just rename it to total underscore cost. Then we have room costs. So let's rename it to room underscore costs. Then we have shipboard expenses. shipboard expenses. So let's rename it to shipboard expenses. Shipboard expenses. So the next one is casino expenses. So let's rename this to casino expenses. That has becoming too long, so let me just use the backslash here and move this down. Okay, so casino expenses. So no, we are just renaming this exactly like the way it was renamed. So we say casino underscore expenses first. So the next one is excursion expenses. Excursion expenses. Excursion expenses. So let's rename this to excursion underscore expenses. So backslash, let's take this down again. So the next one is room type. So let's rename this to room underscore type. So the next one is customer. Just have to copy this because it's too long. So let's put this down here. Now let's just call this customer satisfaction underscore average. Okay, so let's just backslash this. It's also becoming too long. Should be comma here, please. So the next one is overall customers trip satisfaction. So let's take this down there and hit so let's rename this to total customer satisfaction. Total customer underscore satisfaction. So the next one is, would you travel again? So let's just go ahead and name this travel again underscore again. So that's it. In place equals to true. So true. Let's cover this something. So in place equals to true. Let's go ahead and run this. Okay. Say overall travel expenses. Overall travel expenses. Would you travel again? Let's run this and check. We forgot a comma. Let's figure this out. Total cost, total cost, total cost, total cost, total cost, from cost, from cost. Should be comma. First, should be comma. Total cost, comma. Non-cost, comma. Non-cost, shipboard cost, comma, casino, comma, customer instruction, customer expenses, comma. Then room type, comma. Customer satisfaction, comma. So what is happening? Yes, that's comma supposed to be. Total satisfaction is total cost. Columns equals to. So we are going to always figure this out along the way. All right, so let's go ahead and confirm what we have done. df.head. Okay, so as you can see, we have successfully renamed everything. Shipboard, why didn't this rename? Shipboard expenses should be shipboard. Let me just join this together. Let me run this again. And run this again. Okay, so shipboard expenses. So let's just go ahead and confine white spaces, df.columns, to be sure there are no white spaces in between. So why is the shipboard still having a space between it? Alright, so let's just go ahead and rename. df.rename. Then volumes is equals to shipboard expenses. It's even a white space there. It's white space there. The shipboard expenses. Maybe that is why it did not also rename up here, because when you check here, there's a white space, right? So when you check here, when we first check for the columns, there's a white space in shipboard, right? So when we are actually renaming it here, we did not add that white space, right? So that is why the renaming did not reflect you. So what we have to do, let's just go ahead and delete this. Then up here we can add that white space. Okay, so let's add that white space here. Then let's go ahead and rerun this and run this. Now let's see what we have. So that has been figured out. Now another thing, total customer satisfaction. Total customer, one spending for customer. So let's go ahead and rename this again, then rename this. So I think that's it. So that's it. So let's go ahead and, so there are no more white spaces. So the next thing we have to do now is we have to go ahead and extract our numerical columns and our categorical columns so we can go ahead and do our exploratory data analysis. Extracting numerical columns. So to extract our numerical columns, what we have to do is let's call this variable num_cos. So let's say to extract that we use select underscore the types. So we say df dot select underscore the types is the types, then include float and integer, which is n. Okay, so I think let's do that. Okay, let's go ahead and run this and see what happens. Okay, we have to close this. Let's run this. Include, okay, sorry, include equals to. All right. So let's check for the results. So to do that, we say print num_cos. Okay, so let me just make this one understand. Let me just num_cos. So as you can see, this is our numerical columns. So these are our numerical columns. These are our numerical columns. So the next thing we have to do is extract the categorical columns. Our categorical columns. So to do that, we have to do similar thing, but we have to say cat_cos is equals to df.select underscore the types, open bracket and close it, and let's say include equals to objects category. Okay, that's the spelling. So let's go ahead and run this. Why am I always forgetting to close this? So let's go ahead and run this again. Okay, so now let's go ahead and check for results. Say cat_cos. Then we run this. So as you can see, these are the categorical columns we have. Alright, so one thing I like doing is checking for negative values. So the next thing we have to do here, we have to go ahead and calculate the mean. So to do that, what we have to do is we declare a variable. Let's call it mean casino is equals to casino expenses. Then let's call this, okay, this will be casino expenses. Then we'll say so casino underscore expenses. Then we'll say less than, greater than 0. That means we are calculating the mean for casino expenses minus the mean for the negative values. So we say dot mean. So let's just put a note here. Mean of all positive values. Then let's go ahead and let's go ahead and apply this. So let's apply the mean to fill the negative values. So to do that, we say num close, right? Then casino expenses, so this should be equals to this. Copy and paste it, then dot apply. So we use dot apply to actually apply the mean, the calculated mean, to fill all the negative values, right? So say lambda x mean casino if x less than 0, else x. Now, so what we are doing here is that we are trying to use dot apply to actually fill the mean, to actually use the mean, calculated mean of these casino expenses to fill all the negative values here. So that's what we are trying to do. So all we simply did is numcos, which is the data frame of the numerical data, then casino, then this casino, the variable we assigned to casino, dot apply. Remember that we are using this because this is actually the variable we used in calculating the mean. So if we go ahead and use this instead of this, it is not going to work. So we are using this because this is the variable we actually calculated the mean on. So that is why we have casino expenses. Then we use dot apply. So this is just an expression that says that for any if casino mean, right, using casino mean, if x is less than 0, it should fill it with the mean, right? If x is less than 0, then it will be filled with the mean. Now x means each rows in the columns. So when any of the rows in the column is less than 0, right, it will fill it with the mean, right? Else x. But in a situation whereby x is not less than 0, that means it's not a negative value, it remains x. That means it just leaves it in the position, it just leaves the figure that it's found in the row. So this is actually what this is talking about. Now let's go ahead and run this and see if we got it correctly. So this is so where is the error coming from? It's coming from this line. So let's just check. Okay, I think I forgot to put an equals to here. Let's run this again. Okay, I think this should not be here. Let's run this again. It's giving me that error. It's mean. Okay, so I think that worked. So all I needed to do is to just remove those spacings from here. So that worked. Okay, fine. So now let's go ahead and check for results. Checking for results to confirm. Let me just say checking for results. Alright, so to check for results, so all we just have to do is we can just copy this, right? Can just copy this instead of going over to keep writing codes upon codes. So we can just copy this and let's paste this here, and let's go ahead and run this. So as you can see, we have successfully handled the negative values. Now let me go ahead and explain this code. So the first thing we did was we selected the casino expenses because that's just the column with the negative value, in our data frame, right? Now, we created a variable called casino expenses, and we said numcos, that is our casino expenses. That means we are assigning this column to this variable casino expenses. Now, the next thing we did was calculate the mean of casino expenses. So we assigned a variable called mean value to calculate the mean. Now, this casino expenses, which is this variable here, then now we are calculating the mean for just the positive values. So we said casino expenses for anywhere where the column is actually, where the row is actually greater than 0 dot mean, right? So this simply means that we are actually calculating the mean for only the positive values, excluding the negative values, right? Now, the next thing we did was we replaced the negative values in casino with the mean. So numcos, which is the data frame for our numerical columns, then we say casino expenses, which is the column we are working on, is equals to casino expenses, which is this variable. Now, why are we using this variable here instead of this one? This is because this variable was where we calculated the mean and not this. So we use .apply to actually apply the mean of the non-negative values to fill in the negative value. We wrote an expression to say that when x is less than 0, the row should be filled with the mean, else x, right? What this means is that when x is less than 0, that means when x is negative, it should be filled with the mean that we calculated here. But if x is not less than 0, that means if it is not negative, it should leave it with x, right? Now, we went ahead to display the updated data frame, right? Now, when we display the updated data frame, as you can see, this is the negative values that we are working on here. Now, let's go ahead and print the results. Now, when we went ahead to print the results for this, that means we have been checking for negative values. We found out that there are no more negative values in the columns, right? As you can see now, casino expenses is showing no more negative values.